Okay, so get this. We're cracking open Laurie Cabot's book of spells and enchantments. A whole book of spells, can you imagine?
It's like stepping into a world of, well, witchcraft. It's always had that mystique, that element of the unknown, even fear for some.
Right. And Cabot's no stranger to that world. The official witch of Salem, that's quite a title.
It is. And what I find interesting about her work is that she lays out this framework for understanding it all.
Exactly. We're not here to convince you one way or another, believe or don't believe, but to really unpack the how and the why of witchcraft, according to Cabot. So think of us as your guides, right, through this world. And it can get pretty surprising.
Absolutely. And she starts right off the bat with this. Intention is everything. Think of it like the starting point, the seed of what you want to bring about.
Okay, so the magic isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you're actively creating.
Yes. And the practice, that's all about creating the right conditions for that intention to flourish.
So less about, I don't know, snapping your fingers and poof. More about focused energy, right?
Yeah.
Almost like goal setting, but with a magical boost.
Exactly. And Cabot talks about getting into an alpha state of mind, heightened awareness, that sort of thing. She even has this crystal countdown technique, using colors and numbers to get there.
So almost like meditation, but with a specific purpose.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so if intention is the seed, what are the tools, the techniques that help it all grow?
Now it gets really interesting because that's where the hands-on stuff comes in. Cabot's big on having an altar. It doesn't have to be fancy, even just a table, but with a natural cotton cloth, a dedicated space.
Gotcha, a place to focus that energy.
Exactly. And then your tools, a thurible for incense, candles, potion bottles, each thing chosen carefully with its own purpose, even down to, get this, using matches instead of a lighter.
Hold on, why matches? What's wrong with a lighter?
Well, Cabot believes that even the energy of the materials you use plays a role. Matches, they're wood, natural elements. A lighter, it's fluid and plastic. It's about aligning those energies.
So everything has to be in harmony, from the big picture down to the smallest detail.
Right. It's not just about the spell itself, but the intention woven into every single part of it.
Okay, I'm getting that. So what about those bigger forces, like natural cycles?
That's huge in witchcraft, especially lunar cycles. Cabot talks about how different phases of the moon can amplify or diminish a spell's effectiveness, just like they influence planting and harvesting.
So you're not trying to, like, overpower nature, you're working in sync with it.
Yes. And she talks about creating a magic circle. Imagine it like a protective bubble, where you're calling on the four elements: earth, fire, air, and water.
Okay, so this is where it starts to sound like, I don't know, a fantasy novel.
A little bit, but she takes it seriously. Each element even has its own dragon representing it. You use your wand or other tools to direct energy within that circle.
Dragons, magic circles, I kind of love it. But okay, once you've got all that set up, what are the actual spells? What are you trying to do with all this?
Well, Cabot covers a lot of ground. Everything from protection spells to love, healing, even attracting prosperity.
Those are some big ones.
They are, but she's clear. These aren't instant solutions. It's about working with those natural forces to bring about your desired outcome.
Okay, so starting with protection, because I think we all want to feel a little safer, right? How does she approach that?
She actually describes creating what she calls a writ, basically a carved clay tablet that she places at her front door for psychic protection. Then there's visualizing a white light shield around you. And there's even a spell using antique keys.
Antique keys, how does that work?
It's about charging them with the intention of locking out negativity, kind of like a symbolic lock and key for your energy.
So interesting because it's an everyday object, but by imbuing it with your intention, it takes on a whole other meaning.
Exactly. It's not just about saying you want protection. It's about those tangible actions, even the visualizations that help to make it real.
And it makes sense, right? It's like setting an intention in your mind, but also reinforcing it through these actions. Okay, so then love and romance, another big one. I mean, who doesn't want a little more love in their lives?
Right. But what I find fascinating is that she doesn't focus solely on finding a partner. It's about cultivating self-love first.
Okay, I like where this is going. So it's not just about finding the one out there, but becoming the one, so to speak.
Exactly. And she talks about using colors, scents, textures, even music to create that loving, romantic energy in your surroundings.
Like setting the mood, but for yourself, to attract that energy.
Yes. And she has this love filter recipe. Now, it's not something you drink. Imagine it more like a blend of herbs and oils, things like rose and patchouli. You charge it with your intention and carry it with you.
It's like a physical reminder of your desire for love, but also a way of holding that energy within you.
And I think it speaks to a bigger theme in her approach, which is about attracting what you desire rather than demanding it. Alignment, not force. So then we get into healing and prosperity.
Two more topics I think a lot of people are drawn to, maybe even looking for quick fixes. But something tells me that's not Cabot's style.
You're right about that. Yeah, it's not about shortcuts. With healing especially, Cabot really emphasizes that it starts from within. Magic can enhance, amplify your body's own natural healing abilities.
Okay, so it's working with your body, not trying to overpower it.
Exactly. And she talks about visualizing colors, like picturing red orange or emerald green to direct healing energy. She even brings up reflexology, how different points on your feet correspond to other areas of the body.
I've heard about that. It's amazing how interconnected everything is.
Right. It's like a reminder that our bodies are already pretty incredible. And then prosperity, she's not talking about winning the lottery. It's about creating the conditions for abundance, alongside hard work, of course.
So you're not just sitting back and waiting for magic to happen. You're still putting in the effort.
Absolutely. She describes a money drawing spell that incorporates herbs, talismans, rituals, along with taking those practical steps toward your financial goals. It's about aligning your actions with your intentions on every level.
I like that, taking action, but also creating this energetic support system.
Exactly. And timing comes into play again. Remember Cabot's daughter, Jody, manifesting that Rolex?
How could I forget? Pretty convincing.
Right. That's tied into her crystal moon wish list technique, which is all about harnessing that lunar energy again. You write down what you want, charge it with your intention, and release it to the universe on the first full moon after your birthday. Specificity and timing, those are key.
It's fascinating how everything connects back to those natural cycles. It's like a whole other way of looking at the world.
It really is, and it gets even broader than that. She also talks about spirit communication, working with fairies, even exploring time travel.
Okay, now we're getting into some seriously intriguing territory. Start with spirit communication. What does that actually look like in her practice?
She comes at it from a place of comfort, not fear. It's about finding closure, guidance, maybe just that feeling of connection with those who've passed on.
So less about, I don't know, summoning ghosts, more about seeking understanding.
Exactly. She tells this story about a woman who received a message from her deceased son, referencing the movie Highlander, and a sword that had been buried with him. It brought the mother a lot of peace.
Wow. Okay, chills. That's powerful.
And then there's working with fairies. Cabot describes them as nature spirits, guardians of balance.
So almost like representations of those forces we don't always understand in nature.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. And she talks about using a specific blend of herbs, a fairy site herbal mix, to help perceive them. She believes they exist on a different plane with a different relationship to time and the natural world.
It makes you wonder. And time travel. Is that like physically going back in time?
Actually, she advises caution on that front. She shares some personal experiences that left her unsettled. She believes past life regression is a safer way to explore that aspect of yourself without the potential risks of actually physically traveling through time.
So more about accessing those memories, those past experiences within yourself.
Exactly. It's all connected to that idea of tapping into something bigger than ourselves. And that brings us to working with deities.
Okay, deities. That's a big one.
It is. And Cabot is very clear. It's about building relationships, not trying to command them, creating altars, making offerings, that kind of thing.
So approaching them with respect, understanding they might not always give you what you want.
Yes. And she highlights several different deities. Danu, the Irish mother goddess associated with the source of all magic, she has a beautiful invocation ritual for her, using a unicorn picture, a holly crown, a chalice, a gold ring. Very specific.
I'm sensing a theme here with the importance of those tangible objects. It's like each one holds a piece of the intention.
And then there's Ceridwen, the Welsh shape-shifting sorceress, guardian of the cauldron of inspiration, but she's got a temper.
Duly noted. Don't mess with the goddess of inspiration.
Right. Respect is key. Then you've got Merlin, the classic Arthurian wizard. He can be a powerful teacher, but he's also a trickster. So approach with caution.
It's like choosing a mentor, right? You want to be sure they have your best interests at heart.
And she highlights powerful female figures, too, like Morgan Le Fay, often seen as a darker sorceress. But Cabot emphasizes her strength, her connection to both healing and prosperity.
I like that she's presenting these more nuanced perspectives of these figures, especially the female ones.
Yes. And there's Sir Gawain for protection and balance, Queen Meb for strategic thinking and glamour, Boudica, the warrior queen, known for her fierce protection, particularly of children. She really pulls from different pantheons, showing how their stories can resonate with us today.
Finding those figures, those energies that speak to your specific path. But it's not just about asking these deities for things, right? What about gratitude for what they provide?
Huge. She even outlines a libation for thanking a deity. It's about acknowledging their presence in your life, even when things don't go as planned.
It's a good reminder for all of us, magical or not, to practice gratitude. It's like that saying, gratitude turns what we have into enough. But this book goes beyond those more traditional European witchcraft practices, doesn't it? You mentioned Egyptian magic earlier. It's like she's saying, hey, there's this whole world of magic out there with its own cultures and traditions. It's fascinating.
It really is. And with Egyptian magic specifically, it's not all curses and pyramids. Cabot talks about Heka, this force, this energy that was also a deity. It emphasizes the power of words, of intention.
So your words have actual power, like spells in themselves.
That's the idea. She even tells the story of Isis, the ultimate female magician. She figures out Ra's true name, the sun god. And it's that knowledge, that word, that allows her to heal him.
Wow. It's like cracking the code, but with language.
Right. And she touches on other deities, too, like Osiris, Horus, Thoth, each one with their own area of influence. But she does offer a word of caution when it comes to Egyptian magic.
What's that?
She advises against using spells from that tradition without a really solid understanding of what you're doing because of their historical connection to curses and things like that.
So even in the world of magic, intentions matter.
Big time.
Yeah.
And then she gets into the power of symbols, which of course goes way beyond any one culture, like the Eye of Horus, that's often used for protection,
Yeah.
or the sun disk, which represents divinity.
It's amazing how those images are still everywhere today. Most people probably don't even realize what they're looking at.
Right. It speaks to that lasting power, And Cabot suggests that in witchcraft, you can actually use those symbols to tap into those deeper energies that they represent.
So they become like tools to focus your intention.
Exactly. It's making me think about all the choices we make, like how we decorate our homes or even the jewelry that we choose to wear.
It's like, are those things subtly influencing our energy too?
Right. It's something to consider.
Yeah.
And then there's working with Loa, specifically Legba. He's a big one in Haitian Vodou, the Loa of crossroads, communication, all that.
Okay, I've heard that name before.
And Cabot emphasizes approaching Loa with a ton of respect. It's about understanding the protocols, making the appropriate offerings. She even tells this wild story about how, after performing a ritual involving Legba, a pink lightning bolt struck a Masonic temple nearby.
Pink lightning. That's specific.
Right, talk about a sign. But it makes you think, With all this talk about spells, deities, rituals, where does the individual fit into all of this? Where's the witch within, so to speak?
That's what I'm wondering.
And that's where Cabot really shines, I think. She's always coming back to this idea that magic is about co-creation. You have the power, but it's about learning to work with those universal energies, not trying to control them.
So less about forcing things to happen, more about aligning yourself with what's already there.
Exactly. And she has these spells, like the spell for mystery or the spell to have your voice heard. But they're not about manipulating others. It's more about, amplifying those qualities within yourself.
Unlocking your own potential.
Exactly. And breath work, that's huge for her. It's like chi in martial arts, this internal energy you can tap into. Your breath becomes a tool to direct that energy.
It's funny. The more we talk about this, the more I'm starting to think that maybe we're all a bit more magical than we realize.
I love that. And she includes this old witch spell for beauty, which I just find so interesting because it shows that some desires, they're timeless. We haven't really changed all that much.
We're all just trying to find a little magic.
Right. And she has this great visual in her whistle up the wind spell. You write down what you want on this piece of parchment, and then you literally release it to the wind.
I love that imagery. It's so hopeful.
It is. And then there's the black cat spell, which is all about embodying that feline confidence. You approach a mirror like a cat stalking its prey. It's about realizing that power can come from some surprising places.
And, of course, she emphasizes treating animals with respect, especially when they're incorporated into your practice.
Always. And then for self-love, which is so important in her approach, there's the 9 light spell. You surround yourself with different colored lights, each representing a positive affirmation about yourself.
It's like a mood board, but for your soul.
I love that. Reminding yourself of your own worth. It all comes back to that.
So after all this, what would you say is the biggest takeaway from Laurie Cabot's approach to witchcraft? What's the core message she's trying to get across?
It's not about shortcuts. It's not about bending the universe to your will. It's about co-creation, respecting those natural energies, and realizing that we are all connected to something so much bigger than ourselves.
And finding that magic within yourself, using it to create a life that feels authentic, aligned with who you truly are. And maybe, just maybe, making the world a little more magical in the process.
Beautifully said. I think that's the perfect note to end on, don't you? With a sense of wonder and maybe a little spark of curiosity about the magic that's already within us.